Hello, Stewart's Chapel. Brother Don Pierson and Don Counts here. As you can see, we're in the FLC, our worship area, and we're situated right to the side of our baptismal area and chose to do the Lord's Supper here. I'm not planning on doing the Lord's Supper with you. I want to give you some time, or take this time to give you a little bit of instructions about the Lord's Supper on Easter Sunday. And so I'm going to read a scripture. It's in Matthew chapter 26, verse 26 through 29. And it says, "And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.' Then he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, 'Drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.' And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives." I want to remind you something. This is not supposed to be a devotional, but I want to remind you that the Lord's Supper, the first Lord's Supper, was taken before the crucifixion, before the resurrection. And for us, it carries a different meaning. This can be a very intimate, wonderful time for you and your family. Something that you may have never done other than worship. Maybe every time you've had the Lord's Supper, it's been among your brothers and sisters in a worship facility. This may be new ground for you. Some of you fathers and mothers and husbands and wives may be a little nervous. I want to take this opportunity to tell you to chill out. I have been blessed to have the Lord's Supper just about all over the world with believers. Some of them stand out more than others. I've had them with missionaries when we were in training for missionaries, and there I've had them where everybody drank from the same cup. I've had them where there was a giant loaf of bread where everybody passed it around and broke it off and passed a cup. I've done the Lord's Supper differently. I've had the Lord's Supper with orange Fanta in Portugal, in an upper room, literally upper room over a giant market where the vendors had taken and seized this small upper room for a place of worship. And we had the Lord's Supper together, circled up, standing, as this incredible silver tray was passed around, and then the cups going around together. I had it in Belize. I remember when I first arrived in Belize, there was a day I told the church, we're going to have the Lord's Supper. And immediately people came to me. They were afraid. They had never had the Lord's Supper before. These were long, mature believers, but they didn't think they were worthy. And so they had never had the Lord's Supper there. And of course, they didn't have the trays and things like we did, and couldn't find grape juice, and so we used grape Kool-Aid and some bread. And I remember when I offered the invitation to the church to come and take the Lord's Supper, that only 2 people came. Besides my family and my kids, there was only 2. Nobody felt worthy, and it took a long time for them to understand that, for them to get to a place to take the Lord's Supper. I've had it in the jungle under a little kerosene lamp that was covered with bugs from everywhere in the jungle, and taken it with some Mayans. I've had it in Malta. I've had it in different places. Some of the most intimate places, though, has been with family. It's just some of the things that you can do there. So I want to give you some guidelines. And so first, I would stay with the 3 P's. Pray. Pray individually, personally. Pray with your family before. Prepare. Talk honestly with the Lord about what needs to be taken care of in your life, what commitments He's asking you to make. You prepare your heart. Get ready. Help your children to prepare. Purify. Once you've prayed and prepared, you are purified. The work of the Lord has it's already done that. You've already been cleansed. It's time. So you prepare your hearts. You prepare what you need. I posted on the church Facebook page some comments from my daughters last night where she had gone, probably Googled how to make unleavened bread. She made some unleavened breads, 1 little loaf for each of her family members. So there's 3 boys and her husband. So there was 5 little pieces or loaves of unleavened bread, and they had their fancy cup. I don't have anything fancy. I just pretty simple. I just regular bread. You can use crackers, your cup, juice. Prepare what you need. Think about what you're going to do. My daughter shared that they washed their feet during the Lord's Supper. I've seen that. I've done that. You prepare what you will read. I'm going to give you some scriptures, and there's other scriptures you may be drawn to. Here are some classical or scriptures that are commonly used for the Lord's Supper. You'll have more time. You can tell the Passover story. Go over to Exodus and find the Passover passage, and you can read the Passover. And you can share about the significance of how Jesus is the Passover. Those of you that have been on Wednesday night, and your kids, they've already been through that. They'll already understand that. You can use those passages. You can use the passage that I read just now, Matthew chapter 26, verse 26 through 29. You can use 1 Corinthians 11, 23 through 34. You can use John chapter 15, 1 through 17. That's not often a passage used in the Lord's Supper. I looked at it, and it's all about staying in the vine, being connected, abiding. Isaiah 53, verse 3 through 6. If you want to go to our focal passage over in John 6:38, where we have, which we've been using for our devotions, in John chapter 6, verses 53 through and 54, is also a good passage for the Lord's Supper. Now, you may not have had a pen and paper ready, so let me just give you those scriptures again. Exodus, the Passover. 1 Corinthians 11, 23 through 34. John 15, 1 through 17. Isaiah 53, verse 3 and through 6. John chapter 6, verses 53 and 54. Matthew chapter 26, 26 through 29. So you have what you need. It doesn't have to be just this. You'll need, this will be the minimum. Like I said, you may need a towel, a pan of water, a nail, a piece of wood, candle. Prepare what you will do. As parents or whoever is leading this for you, you need to be praying about what are you going to do? What's it going to look like? When it comes time to take the Lord's Supper, I encourage you to take your time. Don't rush it. Be intimate with Him and be intimate with each other. Allow your children to ask questions. Walk them through it, especially if you've got some small children. Do your very best. This is a special time, a sacred time for you. You are going to be able to do some things now that will prepare your family for for the next time that you take the Lord's Supper when we're together. And lastly, I would tell you to remember. You know, on the Lord's Supper table it says, "Do this in remembrance of me." You'll find that in at least one of the passages, the one in Matthew. Do this in remembrance of me. Don't fail to remember as you take the Lord's Supper. One other thing that I'd like to leave with you is some creative ideas. Now, we have the internet. You can Google creative ideas. I found Lifeway has 10 creative ways to celebrate the Lord's Supper. You can do ideas for family Lord's Supper. I'll give you some that I've already mentioned, some of them. Let me just give them together in it's kind of an order. A nail, a cross, unleavened bread. You can have a meal, a full meal, and have the Lord's Supper as part of it. That's the way it was done with Jesus and the disciple. Some of you literally have access to this. One of the most meaningful Lord's Supper that my kids remember was when I brought a lamb. There was a family in our church that had goats and sheep, and I had gotten a maybe just a couple-day-old lamb, and I brought it into the church. I put it in a dog carrier. We passed it around. We held on it. We talked about Jesus being the Passover lamb. Foot washing. Some of you, this won't be a problem, but for people like me, thinking about music and a song, I have to add extra thought to that. But some of you, that'll come natural. What about tearing the veil? Take a sheet or something and just literally tear it in the midst. That's one of the most beautiful symbolisms of what happens on Good Friday. The veil is torn. Tear the veil. Use that to help your children understand that they have access. They don't need Brother Don. They don't need you. They have full access to Jesus. Mark your door. Maybe something that will wash off, but go out and paint your door to represent the Passover. For our lives are marked by the blood of Christ. Tell the story. Thank you, Stewart's Chapel.